There are vegetables you can plant just once in one afternoon and then harvest from them for the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years without planting a single thing again. Not once. You don't have to save seed. You don't have to resow. And once they're in the ground, they ask very little of you. I'm talking about vegetables that feed you through the hungry gap. When winter crops are done and the new spring crops aren't ready yet. I'm talking about vegetables that grow big and handsome and feed you in ways that the seed catalogs have half forgotten. Vegetables with taste, with the kind of harvest that makes you feel like you've done something real. My name is Anna Mae Wagler. I'm Amish, and I farm here in the Milverton and Millbank settlement up in Perth County, Ontario. I've grown perennial vegetables for most of my life now, and my mother before me, and her mother before her. Today, I'll show you 7 of these vegetables. The ones that are easiest to start with, the ones that will feed you the longest, why they actually work, and then the exact way to plant them, and the one thing you absolutely need to watch out for. There's one part near the end that surprises most people, and it's the reason you've never been asked to grow these before. Let me explain how these work first, because the science matters more than the how-to. Most vegetables we plant are annuals. They live one season, pour all their energy into seed making and dying, and then they're gone. The English, they call that natural. But perennial vegetables are different. They're plants that made a different choice thousands of years ago. Instead of spending everything on one season, they spend on staying. They put energy down into a root or a crown or a bulb that lives underground year after year. In the spring, that root wakes up and sends shoots. You harvest those shoots, the root stays there. The next year, it does the same thing again. That root system, that crown, it gets stronger and bigger with age. A perennial vegetable at 5 years old is stronger than it was at 1 year old. That's not natural. That's perennial. That's the whole secret. And if you're watching this right now, if you're someone who's ever felt that pull toward growing your own food, toward knowing where something comes from, I want to ask you something. There's no way for this channel to find you again next week unless you tap that subscribe button. The algorithm doesn't know to show this to people like you unless people like you tell it, I want to see this again. That's how the old ways find the people who were never taught them. So I'm asking you to subscribe. Not for me. For this, for the knowledge that came down through the hands of my grandmother. Tap that button so it knows to bring this back to you. Now let me show you what we're planting. The first one is the globe artichoke. This is a big, bold plant. The leaves are glaucous. That means they have a kind of dusty blue-green bloom on them, and they stand up in a way that makes a real architectural statement in the garden. You can start them from seed, but honest work says you'll have better luck with young plants, the kind you'd buy from a nursery. It's faster, it's less heartbreak. What you need, full sun and soil that drains well. If your soil is heavy clay or holds water, you need to fix that first. I'll get to that in a minute. What you do, space them 3 feet apart. That's about 1 meter. If you have the room, give them even more. These grow into absolute giants. Once they're in the ground, keep the area around them weed-free. Water them, especially through the summer and especially the first year while they're getting their roots down. Next spring, when you see the growth starting again, mulch around them. Well-rotted compost, well-rotted manure, whatever you have. The mulch does 2 things at once. It keeps the weeds from coming back, and it feeds the plant as it breaks down. Now, if you live where the winters are hard, and I mean real hard, like we are here, once the plant dies back in the autumn, you can cover that crown with straw or compost to protect it from the worst of the cold. We get down to -40 here some winters, and the artichokes still come back. What you harvest, it's not the whole flower, it's the flower buds, and you take them when they're about the size of a golf ball, no bigger, and definitely before they open. Once they open, you've missed the eating window. You can steam them or boil them until they're tender, and then you pick off the individual scales and dip each one in a sauce and eat the tender flesh. It's work, but it's good work. When you finish that, you get the heart, the tender centerpiece. That's the prize. After you take the first buds, the plant often sends up a second crop. You can harvest that too. But here's what I want you to do. Let some of them flower anyway. Let at least one stalk go all the way. Because watch what happens. The bees. Oh, I've never seen a bee plant like this one. The bees will cover it. And if you watch them work for even 5 minutes, you'll understand something about patience and precision that no book is going to teach you. The second one is cardoon. It looks like nothing when it's small. Just a cluster of leaves that reminds you of celery that forgot how to be organized. But it loves exactly what the artichoke loves: full sun and soil that drains. And in this case, it's not the flower buds you're eating, it's the stems. You harvest them and you use them the way you'd use celery. You can bake them, you can grate them and make a gratin, you can turn them into soups. The flavor is milder than celery, a little sweeter. The third one is Babington's leek. This is a perennial leek, and it has a flavor that's garlicky in a way that regular leeks aren't. You start with little bulblets. They look like tiny onions, and you plant them about 1 inch deep. I start mine indoors in pots of all-purpose potting mix because it keeps them safe through the winter wet, and it keeps my dog from finding them, which for some reason she loves to do. You can plant them straight into the ground if your winter isn't too harsh, but starting them in pots is insurance. Once they've grown a little, you plant them outside in spring, spaced about 6 inches apart. That's 15 centimeters. They'll form a nice thick clump as they grow. Here's the important part. Leave them alone their first year. Don't harvest anything. Let them put energy down into the bulb underneath. From the second spring onward, you can cut the stems at ground level, and the bulb below keeps growing. In early summer, they send up flower stalks, and those stalks have little bulbils on them, tiny bulbs. Those bulbils either drop down into the soil or they weigh the stalk down so it touches the ground. And when they touch the ground and get buried a little, they take root and start growing. That's how the clump spreads. One plant becomes 5. 5 becomes 10. It happens on its own. There are other perennial onions you can grow too. Welsh onions, which are a type of bunching onion that comes back every year. And there's the tree onion, sometimes called the Egyptian walking onion, because it literally walks across your garden. It grows a bulb on top of its stalk, and that bulb gets heavy and flops over and roots where it lands, and then grows again. It's almost a game to watch. Now, perennial kale. This one is my favorite for one reason. It can grow almost as tall as a person, but you can keep it in check just by harvesting it regularly. It's extraordinarily hardy. A caterpillar comes and chews a hole. The plant shakes it off like nothing happened. And here's the part that makes it special. You can harvest it almost year-round. When you need fresh greens, they're there. You don't have to wait for spring. You don't have to worry about summer heat wilting them. Perennial kale just keeps giving. You don't start this one from seed. You start it from cuttings, and the cutting is big. About 10 inches long, that's 25 centimeters. The nursery will send them to you already trimmed. You look at the bottom, and you'll see it's cut just below a leaf node. The bottom leaves have been stripped off, and that's to save the plant energy during rooting. You're left with just the top leaves. You plant these into pots of all-purpose potting mix. You keep the mix moist, not soggy, just moist, so the roots will form. You put them somewhere bright, and then in spring, once they've rooted and grown on, you plant them outside. The varieties to look for are Taunton Dean, Dobbinton's kale, Ethiopian kale if you're down somewhere hot where other kales struggle, and Sutherland kale, which comes from the crofting communities way up north in Scotland and is the toughest thing you'll ever grow. Now, OCA. This is also called the New Zealand yam, and I want to tell you something that's going to sound impossible. It's as easy to grow as a potato, but it has almost none of the pests and diseases that potatoes have. Almost none. You can boil OCA, bake it, fry it. It cooks just like a potato, but you can also shave it raw into a salad for a lovely lemony taste. The leaves are lemony too, so you can cut those fresh and put them into a salad, and they'll give you that same tang. OK doesn't like frost. It won't survive a winter outdoors. So you start it early by planting it into pots, and then you plant it outside after your last frost date. Space them about 3 feet apart. That's 90 centimeters. They'll grow all through the summer, but here's the thing. They don't form their tubers until autumn. They form late in the season. You harvest them usually when the foliage has died back after the first frost has come. You dig them up. You dry them off. You store them exactly the way you store potatoes. Cool, dry place. But here's what you must do. Keep some of the tubers back. Don't eat those. Plant those next season. That's your seed crop. Jerusalem artichoke, or sunchoke as some call it, these are related to sunflowers. When you plant them in spring, you plant them about 3 inches deep. That's 7 centimeters. And you space them about a foot apart, 30 centimeters. They grow tall, almost as tall as the artichokes. They have pretty flowers. You let them grow through the summer, and then in the autumn, once the foliage dies back, you dig them up and use them like you'd use a potato. And then there's asparagus. This is the one that requires patience. Asparagus needs free-draining soil. It needs full sun. The easiest way to start is with dormant roots or crowns. You'll see them at garden centers in early spring. Buy them fresh. Don't wait. Fresh crowns are better crowns. Here's what you have to do. Dedicate an entire area just for asparagus. This isn't a plant you're going to move around. You're going to dig a trench. You're going to leave it there for 20 years. So choose carefully, prepare the soil, pull out the weeds, dig it over, work in well-rotted manure or compost, the good stuff. Then dig your trench. Make it about a foot wide, that's 30 centimeters, and about 8 inches deep, 20 centimeters. Inside that trench, create a little ridge of soil down the middle. You're going to splay the roots out over that ridge like you're making a crown. Space the crowns 18 inches apart. Yes, that's 45 centimeters. Then dig your next trench 18 inches away. Same distance, same width, same depth. Once they're in, backfill and water to settle everything. You can add a mulch of well-rotted manure or compost on top. It'll suppress weeds and feed the crown as it settles in. Now here's where the patience comes in. You have to resist the urge to cut spears. Not for 1 year, not for 2 years. For 2 full years, you leave them alone. You let them grow their ferns. You let the crown get strong underground. From the 3rd spring onward, you can begin harvesting. You cut them as they appear for 6 to 8 weeks until about midsummer. Then you stop. You let the ferns develop. That ferny foliage is how the crown recharges itself for next year. Without it, you have no next year. Watch for asparagus beetle. It's a small, colorful beetle, and it will chew notches into the spears, making them grow crooked. You pick it off by hand or knock it into a cup of soapy water. At the end of the season, when everything's dead and brown, you clean that up and tidy it away. That's your asparagus beetle management right there. No sprays, no fuss, just your hand and a little attention. Other than that, they're peaceful plants. Now, I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. You've never heard of these vegetables because there's no money in a thing you buy once and never again. There's good money in a thing you buy every month. Seed companies make money on seed. Garden centers make money on plants. But a perennial vegetable, you buy it once and then you're done. You might even give divisions to your neighbor, and now your neighbor has one too without spending a cent. That neighbor might give to someone else. Before long, nobody in your settlement is buying from that seed catalog anymore. Quiet spreads faster than noise in the old days. My grandmother grew these. Her grandmother grew these. These vegetables exist because they were worth keeping. Not because they were new, not because they were flashy, but because they worked. Because you could feed your family on them because they asked little and gave much. My people didn't have money. We didn't have irrigation. We didn't have greenhouses, so we grew things that grew themselves, things that came back, things that were worth the space they took up forever, not just one season. That knowledge is still here. It's just been written out of the story. Here's what I want you to do this week. Make a list. Artichokes, cardoon, Babington's leek, perennial kale, OCA, Jerusalem artichoke, asparagus. Check your garden layout. Find the spot that gets full sun. Check your soil. If it holds water, if it's heavy clay, break that up with compost before you plant anything. A garden center or feed store in your area will have most of these. Some might have to be ordered. Dormant asparagus crowns are seasonal. You'll want to get them in early spring if you're not doing this right now. If you're somewhere warm, Egyptian walking onions and Ethiopian kale are worth your attention too. When you're ready, plant them the way I've shown you. Give them room. Give them sun. Give them 1 year to settle, and then let them feed you. I want to know what you grow. Have you ever kept a perennial vegetable through a winter? Have you ever dug up an oca and been surprised at the harvest? My grandmother had a saying about asparagus. I'd love to hear if your grandmother had the same one. Come back and tell me. Bring a photo if you can. I read every single one of these. I do. We're building something here. A memory of what the people who built things with their hands already knew. The world right now is all noise about what's new. But the strongest things are always the old things. They lasted because they worked. They came back because they were worth coming back to. These vegetables know that. Your hands know it. You'll know it too the first spring you harvest from something you planted a year before. Subscribe for more videos like this.